What is up, guys? It's your boy Andy Arts, and today we are going to talk about New York City. New York City is no longer a place for artists. Now, don't get me wrong. New York still has a lot to offer. It's still one of the biggest cities in the world. But so many horrible things have happened to New York since the pandemic of 2020. You know, that magical year. You guys know what happened that year. I don't need to repeat it. But look, New York is no longer the city that it used to be. Okay, New York used to be the center of the world. They used to call it. I remember back in the early 2000s, people would call New York the center of the world. You know, the migrant capital of the world. People would migrate to New York was the portal to America, right? Because it's on the east side of America. So we would have access to Europe, access to a lot of boats will stop there. New York was such an amazing place, like it really was. You know, my teacher in high school would talk about how amazing New York was. He had family there, and in the late 2000s, I would go. I would take the train to New York all the time. It was such a great experience. And but looking at New York now, I cannot say the same thing. A lot of people have left, a lot of rich people have left. And when rich people leave a location, that's how you know something has terribly has gone wrong. Because when the money leaves New York, who's gonna pay you? And I'm saying that from an employment perspective, a financial perspective, but also like if you wanna make a living as an artist, you need people to pay you. Like let's just be honest here. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. So New York has a history of artists leaving their countries, mainly from Europe, back in the 1800s. New York has a history of artists leaving Europe, leaving their European countries, coming to New York for creativity. Pablo Picasso came to New York. Frida Kahlo, the one of my favorite fine artists, Frida Kahlo, with this surrealism, she came to New York with her husband. It was such a crazy time. New York, a lot of art movements, started here and came here from Europe and made New York what it was. So it sucks to say because I have visited many museums in New York, like the MoMA Art Museum of Art. I've visited. I visited like the World's Crazy Records Museum. I forgot. I visited tons of museums in New York. No, I think I visited like three or four museums in New York, right? And but now, ever since the pandemic, ever since that time, it's no longer available. Like New York is so crazy expensive nowadays. You can't. It's not for young people. If you're a young person and you're trying to get some type of like head start in New York, it's almost impossible because like if you cannot afford a simple studio or one bedroom apartment, what good is it? Right? How are you supposed to get started? The reason why people move to the city is to be able to find decent employment, right? You find a decent employment, these a good enough job to help you pay the rent so that then you can get your artistic career rolling, right? But if you can't even afford an apartment, you can't move there unless you're living with family. And but it's not just that. It's not just the finances and the economics. It's also like like some people say, oh, well, New York has always had crime. And you know what? Yes, of course. Cities always have the most crimes. But the problem is that now crime has been increasing so much that it's almost like we cannot say it's been at the same level that it used to be, right? And as a result, many artists are leaving New York. Musicians, so if you make beats, if you play instruments, things of that nature, if you're a painter, digital artist, traditional artist, a lot of artists are just leaving New York because they just can't afford to live there. Similar to California, right? And they're just going to bigger. Well, I don't know if I should say bigger, but better places, more affordable places. And look. Um, it's not just the money too. It's just like New York just isn't what it used to be. Now, I don't want to say that New York does not value artists anymore. I mean, I believe that they still do, but it's just not to the same degree. Thanks to the politicians there, thanks to it's just a lot of things that have just gone wrong there. And I'm not gonna go through anything. I'm not here to preach to anybody. I'm not here to talk about some kind of political movement. None of that. I'm just speaking I'm speaking on the benefit of artists. Like we go to a place because we want to benefit from it. We want to reach new people, right? We want to network. We want to, advance our careers. That's why people move to the big city. But artists are leaving. Artists are leaving. There's just way too many problems. And honestly, there's other places where we can go. And the internet has made it easy where we no longer have to stay in one place. The internet has made it easy for you to not rely on one place. The internet has made it easy for communications, for so many things. I mean, there's many artists on YouTube just making a living, a decent living. Yeah, whether if it's traditional or digital. If you have a digital tablet. So here's my recommendation to artists, right? Here's my recommendation to artists as somebody who, I went to art college. My favorite teacher in high school, he himself was an artist. This is where I got my inspiration from. Thank you, Mr. Sagasti, if you're watching this. Thank you very much. You were like a father to me in high school. So instead of spending money on expensive New York rents, instead of spending money, $2,000, $3,000, even I think even more. I think there's rents in New York that go as far as like $5,000. I mean, I don't know how people can afford that crap, right? So instead of spending your money in New York rent, I recommend people to go to art conventions. So art conventions like Designer Con, art conventions where like Dragon Con, where people go into cosplay, like anime conventions are absolutely fantastic, right? I love anime conventions. They have an artist alley in anime conventions, and this is what I always say about anime fans. Anime fans are something special because these are the people, they would spend hours working on a cosplay. And although they do not have a lot of money, they will spend hundreds of dollars. Sometimes, depending on the person, sometimes even thousands of dollars if they're really passionate about something, right? I mean, there's been cosplayers who spend about $3,000 on cosplay. So I will leave this as the way to go. Conventions, Comic Con, selling your stuff at conventions, designer cons. There's also YouTube video conventions where you can learn to promote yourself and meet new people. There's just so many ways to do it. You don't have to rely on just living in New York anymore, right? Although this might seem a little less traditional, but look, you can open up a table at a convention and sell your goods, whether if it's like steampunk goods. There's you never know who's gonna buy your stuff, but it just seems like this is the way to go now. Like people that really 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 like art, it's either at a museum, an art event, or an anime convention. And a lot of people go there. People, you can go to an anime convention and not really like art. Some people just go there before the cosplay and the art and the artist alley. So anime conventions and these types of like nerdy conventions are really a really good place to sell your art. And this is just the way to go. I also recommend people to open up a website. You can start a website now for cheap. Like websites don't really cost very much nowadays. Which is something I haven't done yet, which I will do hopefully in this coming year. Now, much like what is happening in Hollywood, in California, movie studios are leaving due to the conditions of California, right? They're leaving due to the conditions of California, and they're opening up opportunities in other places in the United States, in other countries. I mean, there's movie studios that have gone to Vancouver, they've gone to Georgia, they've gone to Florida, Louisiana, they've gone to I think New Zealand. Right? They've gone to so many places. Like, We no longer have to rely in one place. So it used to be that if you want to be an actor, you have to go to California. If you want to be an artist, painter, designer, New York. That's the place to go. That's where you had to go, right? You will go there, get a job, pay the rent, and then you would work as an artist. You would, do what you like to do in the weekends or with your friends, whatever. When you go home, you work on your paintings, right? But that has changed thanks to the internet. As a matter of fact, it's gotten even much easier because now you can you can ship your paintings and your artwork all over the world, not just in, you know, not just in one location. That's the great thing about modern day artists. So I'm gonna leave it at that. It's kind of sad, but the world changes and we have to adapt to the changes. And I just recommend people get out of New York. It's way too expensive. If you do want to go to New York, you can do so on the weekends. If you live in the area, well, if it's like Connecticut, New Jersey, right, you can live in Philadelphia. A lot of people, Philadelphia has a good artist community, so you can move to Philadelphia and then just take the train up to New York on the weekends. Same thing if you live like in Boston, Connecticut, those areas. Or you don't even have to live in Manhattan or in the New York in the five boroughs. You can live in like maybe, you know, just like in White Plains, somewhere near New York where you can take the train. But it's just not worth it. It's way too expensive, way too pricey. And unless you can afford it, I do not recommend you stay there. So, not quite sure how to end this video, except it's sad. Once upon a time, I did want to move to New York. However, now, especially if you work digitally like I do, if you do digital art, you can live in other countries. So let's say if you have a good following on YouTube, you got a website, you're making good money as a digital artist, paint drawing on your tablet. You can be a digital nomad, and a lot of digital nomads, they go to Thailand, they go to the Philippines, Japan, Europe. You can stay somewhere in Europe, Italy, right? And in many places like in Eastern Europe and South America, they have cheap rent. You can stay in one of those places for very cheap. So this is just how the world's moving. Is more nomadic, I guess. So I don't know what else to say. Whatever your thoughts are, comment below, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. This is your boy Andy Arts. Godspeed.